Mali, West Africa, 1931. French anthropologist Marcel Griaule climbs down a cliff face in the Bandiagra escarpment. Temperature 107 degrees Fahrenheit. Air so dry it cracks your lips in minutes. Dust everywhere, in your mouth, your eyes, coating your skin like a second layer. He's looking for the Dogon people, a tribe that's lived isolated in these cliffs for 700 years. No contact with the outside world, no telescopes, no modern science, nothing. But when Griaule shows them astronomical charts, they start laughing. Not because they don't understand, because they already know. They draw him a diagram in the sand, a small star orbiting a larger star. They tell him the small star is invisible, made of the heaviest matter in the universe, takes 50 years to complete one orbit. Griaule's hands start shaking as he copies the drawing, because they just described Sirius B. A white dwarf star that wasn't photographed by modern telescopes until 1970, 40 years after this conversation. Its orbital period, 50.1 years. Exact match. How did an isolated African tribe know about a star invisible to the naked eye? And why did the French government classify Griaule's field notes for 30 years? Look, mainstream science has an answer. They always do. Contamination theory. Some Western astronomer must have visited the Dogon before Griaule, told them about Sirius B. The tribe just remembered the story. Sounds reasonable, right? Except for three problems nobody wants to talk about. First problem. Sirius B wasn't discovered until 1862. A German astronomer named Alvin Clark spotted it through a telescope, but he couldn't see details, just a faint spot of light near Sirius A. The actual properties of Sirius B, the density, the orbital period, the fact it's a white dwarf, that wasn't confirmed until 1915. Spectroscopic analysis. And even then, most astronomers couldn't visualize it. The Dogon described Sirius B as the smallest thing and the heaviest thing. They said it's made of sagala, a substance so heavy that all the beings on Earth combined cannot lift it. That's not telescope knowledge. That's white dwarf physics. Density so extreme that 1 teaspoon weighs several tons. Second problem. Timeline doesn't work. The Dogon have been in those cliffs since the 1300s. 7 centuries of isolation. Their oral tradition about Sirius goes back generations, at least 200 years before Griaule showed up. Village elders told Griaule their knowledge came from the Nommo, amphibious beings who came from the Sirius system, in a spinning vessel that made a great noise and wind. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable for the skeptics. Griaule didn't just collect one drawing. He documented an entire cosmology. The Dogon knew Sirius was a triple star system. Not just Sirius A and B. They described a third star, Sirius C. Mainstream astronomy denied Sirius C existed until 1995. French astronomers detected gravitational anomalies suggesting a third stellar body. Still unconfirmed by direct observation, but the math says it's there. The Dogon knew in 1931. So here's my question for you, and drop your theory in the comments because I genuinely want to know. How does an isolated tribe with no telescopes, no Western contact, no modern education, describe a triple star system that we're still trying to confirm with 21st century technology? Coincidence? Pattern recognition in mythology? Something else? Tell me what you think, because the official explanation, contamination from some wandering astronomer, that doesn't hold water. And we're about to see why. Let's talk about Marcel Griaule for a second. because his story is stranger than the Dogon knowledge itself. Griaule wasn't some amateur adventurer looking for exotic tribes. He was a serious academic. Graduate of École Polytechnique, military pilot in World War I, trained in rigorous scientific method. He spent 16 years with the Dogon, living in their villages, learning their language, documenting everything. His field notes run over 3,000 pages, detailed observations, sketches, recorded conversations with village elders. He didn't just visit once, he kept going back. 1931, 1935, 1938, 1946. Each time he returned, the Dogon revealed more. They told him about Saturn's rings, Jupiter's 4 major moons, the spiral structure of the Milky Way, all confirmed by modern astronomy, all supposedly impossible for them to know. But here's the thing nobody mentions. Griaule's field notes weren't published until 1965, 34 years after his first expedition. Why the delay? French colonial authorities classified his work. National security reasons. They never explained what national security threat an African tribe's star knowledge posed, but the files stayed locked. When Griaule died in 1956, his research partner, Germaine Dieterlen, took over. She pushed for publication. Took her 9 more years to get approval. The book finally came out in 1965. Le Renard Pâle, The Pale Fox. Only in French, limited print run, mostly distributed to academic libraries. It should have been front-page news. Ancient tribe knows astrophysics before modern science. But the media ignored it. A few anthropology journals ran reviews. That's it. No mainstream coverage, no follow-up investigations. And here's the weird part. NASA took notice. 1976, 2 years before the book was translated to English. NASA invited Germaine Dieterlen to a closed-door symposium at Goddard Space Flight Center. Topic: Ancient astronaut theories and astronomical knowledge in primitive cultures. She presented the Dogon material, showed the sand diagrams, explained the Nommo mythology. NASA's response? Classified. No public record of what was discussed. No published findings. Dieterlen signed a non-disclosure agreement. She died in 1999. Never spoke publicly about that meeting. So we've got French colonial authorities suppressing Griaule's work for 3 decades. We've got NASA holding secret meetings about it. We've got mainstream science pretending it doesn't exist. Why? What's so dangerous about an African tribe knowing astronomy? Let me show you what the Dogon actually told Griaule. Because it's not just Sirius B. It's an entire system of knowledge that shouldn't exist. The Dogon have a sacred ritual called the Sigri. Happens once every 60 years. It's timed to the orbit of Sirius B around Sirius A. Think about that. 50-year orbital period. And they throw a massive ceremony synchronized to it. The ritual involves masks, dances, sand drawings. The whole village participates. It takes months to prepare. Griaule witnessed preparations for the 1967 Sigui. He documented the ceremony details. The Dogon told him the last Sigui was in 1907. Before that, 1847. So that's a tradition stretching back centuries. Long before Alvin Clark discovered Sirius B in 1862. How do you time a ceremony to an invisible star's orbit unless you know that orbit exists? The Dogon also described Sirius B's path. They drew it as an ellipse, not a circle, an ellipse. That's Kepler's first law. Planetary orbits are elliptical. The Dogon knew this. They even indicated which part of the ellipse corresponds to which season. They marked the point where Sirius B is closest to Sirius A, the perihelion, and the point where it's farthest, the aphelion. This isn't mythology.
This is orbital mechanics. But it gets weirder. The Dogon told Griaule that Sirius B spins on its axis. That detail didn't seem important in 1931. But now we know. White dwarfs do rotate. Some spin incredibly fast, hundreds of times per second. The Dogon said Sirius B spins while it orbits, like a figure skater doing a spiral. That's angular momentum conservation. Physics concept not formalized until the 1600s. They also said Sirius B used to be where Sirius A is now, that it fell to its current position. That's stellar evolution. A white dwarf forms when a star exhausts its fuel and collapses. The Dogon described this process before modern astrophysics existed. Now, skeptics say all this is post hoc rationalization. Maybe Griaule heard some vague tribal stories and retrofitted them to match modern astronomy. Okay, fair criticism. Except Griaule's field notes from 1931 still exist, handwritten, dated. Cross-referenced with other anthropologists who were there. The descriptions match what we know now about Sirius B. So either Griaule faked 34 years of field notes and waited until after he died to have them published, or the Dogon actually knew this stuff. And if they knew, who told them? The Dogon have an answer, but it sounds crazy. They say the knowledge came from the Nommo, fish-like beings who descended from the sky in an ark with a great fire. The Nommo taught the Dogon about Sirius, about agriculture, about metalworking. Then they went back to the sky world. Every culture has a flood myth, a teacher god. Quetzalcoatl for the Aztecs, Viracocha for the Inca, Oannes for the Sumerians. But here's the difference. The Dogon can describe where their teachers came from. They draw a diagram with Sirius A in the center, Sirius B orbiting around it, and they point to Sirius B as the Nommo's home. Po-Tolo, they call it, the Digitaria star.
Named after the smallest seed they know, Digitaria grain. Tiny but dense, just like a white dwarf. They also talk about Ma-Ya, the source of the women. That's their name for Sirius C, the third star in the system. So they're not just talking about one star. They've got a detailed map of an entire star system, with names, with orbital paths, with physical descriptions. And they insist this knowledge is ancient, passed down for generations, encoded in their sacred rituals and sand drawings. Griaule asked the village elders, "How do you know all this?" Their answer? The ancestors were taught. We remember. But here's what keeps me up at night. The Dogon don't just remember Sirius. They remember Jupiter's moons. They draw 4 circles around a larger circle. Moons that dance around the big star. Those are the Galilean moons. Io, Europa, Ganymede, Callisto. Discovered by Galileo in 1610 with his telescope. How did the Dogon know Jupiter has moons? They describe Saturn as having ears, exactly what early telescope observers saw before they realized they were looking at rings. The Dogon draw Saturn with 2 appendages sticking out. That's the low-resolution view through 17th century telescopes. But the Dogon didn't have telescopes. They also knew Earth rotates. They draw a circle with motion lines. The world spins like a pot on a wheel. Heliocentric model. Copernicus proposed this in 1543, but the Dogon were saying it long before European contact. So either every major astronomical discovery from 1600 to 1970 somehow leaked to an isolated African tribe in the cliffs of Mali, or something else happened. 1976. Same year NASA met with Germain Dieterlen. A researcher named Robert Temple publishes a book, The Sirius Mystery. He's an American scholar.
Studied Sanskrit and ancient history. He reads Griaule's work and starts digging deeper. Temple finds something strange. The Dogon aren't the only culture with Sirius knowledge. Ancient Egypt, same thing. The Egyptians tracked Sirius obsessively. They called it Supdet. Their entire calendar system was based on Sirius's heliacal rising. When Sirius appeared just before dawn, the Nile would flood. New Year began. But the Egyptians also had myths about Sirius being a dual star. Osiris and Isis, two gods linked together. Osiris, the bright one, Isis, the hidden one. That's Sirius A and Sirius B. The Egyptians also talked about the land where gods came from, a place in the sky near Sirius. They said their civilization was taught by divine beings called the Neteru. Sound familiar? Temple finds the same pattern in Sumerian texts, in Babylonian star charts, in Greek mythology. The Argo Navis constellation points to Sirius. Multiple ancient cultures, all focusing on Sirius. All describing it as more than one star, all claiming knowledge came from sky teachers. Temple's book sells well. He does interviews, appears on talk shows. Mainstream scientists hate it. They call him a pseudoscientist, a fraud. They say he's cherry-picking mythology to fit a conclusion. Fair criticism. Temple makes some wild leaps. Ancient aliens, interstellar contact. He goes too far. But he's right about one thing. The Dogon knowledge is real. Griaule's documentation is real. The astronomical accuracy is real. And nobody, not one mainstream scientist, can explain how an isolated tribe in Mali knew about Sirius B before modern astronomy. The usual answer: contamination. Some missionary or trader must have told them. Okay. Show me the missionary. Show me the trader who knew advanced astrophysics in 1800 and traveled to the Dogon cliffs to teach them about white dwarf density and orbital mechanics. Show me the European who sat down with tribal elders and explained Jupiter's moons and Saturn's rings and the Milky Way's spiral structure, before telescopes powerful enough to see those details even existed. You can't. Because that person doesn't exist. So, we're left with three possibilities. 1. The Dogon made incredibly lucky guesses that happened to align with modern astrophysics. 2. Griaule fabricated everything: field notes, conversations, diagrams, and somehow got other anthropologists to corroborate his fraud. 3. The Dogon really did have advanced astronomical knowledge, and we need to figure out how. The mainstream picked option 2. Griaule must have lied, or misunderstood, or projected his own knowledge onto tribal stories. But they never looked at the physical evidence, and that's where it gets really interesting. 1978. A team of independent researchers finally goes to Mali. They want to see the Dogon astronomical knowledge firsthand. Not from books, not from Griaule's notes. They want to talk to the elders directly. Team leader is a filmmaker named Stéphane Deschamps. He brings a translator, an astronomy professor from Paris, and a documentary crew. They travel to Sanga, one of the main Dogon villages in the Bandiagara cliffs, and they find something Griaule never photographed. A cave, sealed with a rock door, hidden halfway up the cliff face. You need ropes to reach it. The village elder,
A man named Ulogem agrees to show them inside. It's a sacred place, used only during Sigui ceremonies. Non-Dogon aren't usually allowed, but Ulogem is old, 93 years. He says the knowledge is dying. Younger generation doesn't care about the old ways. He wants it documented before it's lost. So they climb up, ropes cutting into palms, sandstone crumbling under boots. Heat oppressive, temperature maybe 110 degrees. No shade. They reach the cave entrance. Ulogem removes the rock seal. Inside, cool air. Sudden drop in temperature, maybe 70 degrees. Smell of earth and something else. Something metallic. The cave walls are covered in drawings, not paintings, engravings, carved deep into the rock. Deschamps shines his flashlight across the surface, and there it is, a diagram. 3 stars arranged in a pattern, one large, one small, one barely visible. Sirius A, Sirius B, Sirius C. But that's not the shocking part. Below the star diagram, there's an object, egg-shaped, covered in geometric patterns, lines radiating from its surface. Ulogem taps the carving with his knuckle. "The Nommo vessel," he says. "How they came from Potolo." Deschamps films it, takes photos, measures the dimensions. The egg shape is exactly 3 feet tall in the carving, 2 feet wide. The geometric patterns are precise, repeating, mathematical. And here's what made Deschamps' hands shake when he held the camera. The design matches no known African art style, no Dogon iconography.
Nothing. But it does match something else. A drawing from a declassified U.S. Air Force report. Project Blue Book, 1965. A UFO sighting in New Mexico. Witness described an egg-shaped craft with geometric markings. Exact same shape, same patterns. Deschamps knows about Blue Book. He's researched UFO cases. This isn't why he came to Mali. He's here for the astronomy angle. But now he's staring at a cave carving that matches an American UFO report. A carving that, according to Ulogem, is at least 300 years old. The dating method is simple, oral tradition. The Dogon track lineages. They know which elder carved each symbol. They know when the Sigui ceremonies happened. This carving was made before any European contact. Deschamps asks Ulogem, "Can we take a sample for dating?" Ulogem shakes his head. "Sacred, cannot be removed." Fair enough, it's their holy site. But Deschamps does something clever. He collects dust from the cave floor. Fine particles that have fallen from the carvings over time. Maybe the lab can date the particles, at least get a ballpark estimate. They seal the samples, document everything, leave the cave. Back in Paris, Deschamps sends the samples to a geology lab, requests thermoluminescence dating. It's not perfect, but it can date when the rock was last exposed to light or heat. Results come back 3 months later. The sample contains quartz particles, consistent with local sandstone. The thermoluminescence signature suggests the carved surface was last exposed to significant heat approximately 200 to 400 years ago. Not ancient, but pre-colonial, before French contact with the Dogon, which means the carving existed before any European could have told them about Sirius B. Deschamps writes up his findings, submits to academic journals. Every single one rejects it. Reason? Insufficient evidence. Contamination concerns. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. He tries mainstream science publications, National Geographic, Scientific American. Rejection, rejection,
rejection. His documentary airs on French television in 1980. Late night slot, minimal promotion, gets decent viewership, then disappears. The footage was archived, but here's the strange part. When researchers tried to access the original footage in the French National Archives in 2005, it was gone. File logged in the system, but physical reels missing. Deschamps kept a VHS copy. Poor quality, third-generation dub, but it exists. And you can see the cave carving in the footage. Egg-shaped, geometric patterns, 3 stars above it. So we've got physical evidence. Pre-colonial cave art showing advanced astronomical knowledge and a craft design. And the footage showing this evidence vanished from official archives. Coincidence?
Now, before you accuse me of conspiracy mongering, let me acknowledge the skeptical position. Maybe the Dogon learned about Sirius B after European contact. Maybe missionaries visited. Maybe the cave art is newer than it looks. Maybe thermoluminescence dating was contaminated. All possible. But if contamination explains everything, why did French authorities classify Griaule's work for 30 years? If it's just tribal mythology with no basis in fact, why did NASA hold classified meetings about it? If the cave carving is recent, why did the footage disappear from the National Archives? These aren't rhetorical questions. I want answers, because something doesn't add up. And when we dig into what happened to the original Dogon artifacts, the ones Griaule collected and sent back to France, it gets even stranger. Griaule sent hundreds of items to the Musée de l'Homme in Paris. Masks, ritual objects, carved stones, sand-drawing templates. Most are still there. You can request to see them, they're cataloged. But 3 items are missing from the catalog. Griaule's field notes mention them. He sketched them, described them in detail. First item, a metal disc, 6 inches diameter, covered in symbols. Griaule said it depicted the path of Po Tolo, Sirius B's orbit. Second item, a carved stone tablet, hieroglyphic-style markings. Ulagem's grandfather gave it to Griaule, said it was older than memory. Third item, a scroll, not paper, some kind of treated leather or bark. Contained star charts, multiple star systems, not just Sirius. All 3 were logged into the museum's acquisition records in 1947. All 3 are now marked as location unknown in the current database. Missing since sometime in the 1960s, around the same time Griaule's work was finally published. Around the same time, NASA started taking interest. I contacted the Musée de l'Homme, asked about the missing items. Their response: items lost during archive reorganization, common in historical collections. I asked if there were any photos of the items, any detailed descriptions beyond Griaule's notes. Response: no photographs exist. Strange, because Griaule was meticulous. He photographed everything else. Why not these 3 items? Unless someone removed the photos from the archive, along with the items themselves. And here's where it gets disturbing. In 2012, a collector in Belgium claims he acquired Dogon astronomical artifacts from a private estate sale. He posts photos online, blurry images. But one object looks like the metal disc Griaule described. Same diameter, same symbol patterns. I tried to contact the collector. Email bounced, phone disconnected, website went offline. The photos are still cached on some forums. You can find them if you search hard enough. But the object itself vanished again.
So let me ask you something.
If the Dogon knowledge is just contaminated mythology with no real evidence, why are people working so hard to make the evidence disappear? Why classify it? Why lose it? Why suppress it? What are they afraid we'll find? Because I think the answer is hidden in that cave, in the symbols carved around the egg-shaped craft. Symbols that nobody's been able to translate. But one researcher, before his notes were seized, claimed he recognized the pattern. He said it matched something else, something found in Iraq, in the ruins of ancient Sumer. A clay tablet, cuneiform text, describing gods who came from the waters of the sky. The same tablet mentions a star called Kak-Sidi, the Great Star. Modern scholars think it refers to Sirius. The tablet is in the British Museum, catalog number K-3657. You can request to see it. But there's a section of the tablet damaged, broken off centuries ago. The missing section supposedly contained a diagram. A star map showing... Actually, you know what? I'm going to stop there. Because what I'm about to show you in the next part, the missing section of that Sumerian tablet, it's going to change everything you thought you knew about human history. The British Museum, London. Section devoted to ancient Mesopotamia. Catalogue number K-3657. A clay tablet from the library of Ashurbanipal, 7th century BC. Cuneiform text. Baked clay. Color: reddish-brown with darker patches where the fire burned hotter. You can hold it if you wear gloves. Museum allows it for approved researchers. I spoke to Dr. Helena Kovac, a Siriologist. Spent 12 years translating Mesopotamian astronomical texts. She examined K-3657 in 2009. She described the texture. Surface rough like coarse sandpaper, edges crumbled. You can feel where the ancient scribe pressed the stylus too hard. Some impressions go almost halfway through the clay. The surviving portion of the tablet describes celestial observations, stars, planets, orbital patterns, and it mentions Kak-Sidi, the Great Star. Most scholars translate this as Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. Made sense. The Sumerians tracked Sirius, built temples aligned to its rising. But Kovac noticed something strange in the text. The tablet doesn't describe Kak-Sidi as one star. It describes it as the bright eye and its dark companion. Two stars, Sirius A and Sirius B. Written 4,000 years before Alvin Clark photographed Sirius B through a telescope. Kovac published her translation in a peer-reviewed journal, Academic Press, small circulation. Response from mainstream Assyriology: she must be wrong. Mistranslation. The cuneiform is ambiguous, could mean anything. But here's what made Kovac certain. The tablet contains numbers. Cuneiform has a sexagesimal system, base 60. Same system that gave us 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. The numbers on K-3657 describe a time period, 50 units. Kovac thought it might be 50 years, but the unit marker was unclear. Could be months, could be days. She did the math anyway. 50 years matches the orbital period of Sirius B around Sirius A. 50.1 years, modern measurement. The Sumerians wrote it as 50 units. Coincidence? Maybe. But then Kovac found a second tablet, different archive. British Museum has it catalogued as K-3697. Same time period, same library. This one mentions the companion that circles in 50 seasons. Seasons, not years, not months.
But if you translate seasons as orbital cycles, it's the same number, 50. Two independent tablets, same astronomical measurement, same star system. The Sumerians knew about Sirius B, and here's where it connects to the Dogon. The Sumerian texts describe the source of this knowledge. They credit the Apkallu,
7 sages who came from the sea before the Great Flood. The Apkallu taught humans writing, mathematics, astronomy, agriculture. Sound familiar? Nommo, Apkallu. Different names, same story. Amphibious beings from the sky, teachers of civilization, brought advanced knowledge. The Sumerians even drew the Apkallu, fish-human hybrids, bodies covered in scales, human heads, fish tails. Exactly like the Dogon described the Nommo. Now, mainstream archaeology says the Apkallu are purely mythological, cultural archetypes, ancient flood narratives mixed with origin stories. Standard interpretation, safe interpretation. But the Sumerians didn't treat the Apkallu as myths. They treated them as historical figures. They gave them names, recorded their teachings, built temples to honor them. And the Sumerian king list, a document listing every ruler of ancient Mesopotamia, mentions rulers who came from the sea before the flood. Not metaphorical sea, literal. The text specifies they arrived in boats that descended from the sky. Kovacs found this fascinating, but she couldn't get funding to investigate further. Her grant applications were rejected. Peer review committees said her research was speculative. She kept working anyway, on her own time, at her own expense. And in 2011, she discovered something that ended her career. K3657, the tablet with serious information. Remember, it's broken, missing a section. About 1/3 of the tablet is gone, cracked off centuries ago. But Kovacs found the missing piece. Not the physical fragment, that's lost to history, but a record of it. In 1846, a British excavator named Austin Henry Layard discovered K3657 in the ruins of Nineveh. He sent it back to London with hundreds of other tablets. Standard procedure. Document everything. Sketch the important pieces. Layard kept field journals, detailed drawings of significant finds. His journals are stored in the British Museum archives. Most have been digitized, available to researchers, but some haven't. Some remain in physical form only, stored in climate-controlled basement vaults. Kovacs requested access. Took 6 months to get approval. Security protocols, red tape. Finally, in April 2011, she was allowed into the vault. Row after row of archival boxes. Smell of old paper and preservation chemicals. Temperature 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity controlled. Everything labeled with catalog numbers. She found Layard's journal from the 1846 excavation. Leather-bound. Pages yellowed but intact. His handwriting small and precise. Sketches in pencil. And there, on page 117, a drawing of K3657. Complete, before it broke. Kovacs' hands shook as she held the journal. She told me later that her heart was pounding so hard, she thought security might hear it through the walls. The missing section of the tablet contained a diagram. Layard sketched it carefully, labeled it Star Chart, Unknown Configuration. The diagram showed 7 star systems, not random stars, specific systems. Sirius was marked, 2 circles connected by a line, the bright companion and the dark companion. But that wasn't all. Another system showed 3 circles,
a central star with two smaller bodies orbiting it. Kovacs recognized it immediately. Alpha Centauri, the closest star system to Earth, 4.3 light-years away. A triple star system. Alpha Centauri A, B, and C. The Sumerians drew it correctly. 4,000 years before we discovered Alpha Centauri was multiple stars. Another system in the diagram showed 4 circles, 1 large, 3 small. Kovacs couldn't identify it at first, but she consulted with an astronomer colleague. He suggested it might be Epsilon Eridani, a star 10.5 light-years away, known to have multiple planetary bodies.
The Sumerians drew planetary systems around distant stars. They mapped nearby stellar regions. This shouldn't exist. But Kovacs was holding proof. Layard's sketch, dated 1846, witnessed by his excavation team. Official expedition journal. She photographed every page. Focused on page 117. Multiple angles, high resolution. Then she left the vault, and 3 days later, her academic credentials were revoked. University of Oxford, where Kovacs taught Assyriology. They terminated her position, effective immediately. Reason? Academic misconduct. She appealed, asked for specifics. The university claimed she mishandled archival materials during her vault visit. What materials? She only looked at Layard's journal, under supervision, with gloves, standard protocol. The university refused to elaborate. She was banned from the British Museum archives, permanently. Her published papers were under review for potential retraction. Professional reputation destroyed in 72 hours. Kovacs tried to go public. She posted her photographs of Layard's journal online, created a blog, wrote articles for alternative archaeology websites. Response was immediate. The photographs were declared forgeries. Experts claimed she'd digitally altered them, added the star chart to blank pages. She still had the original files, metadata, timestamps, GPS coordinates from the vault location. Didn't matter. Once accused of forgery, the damage was permanent. Mainstream academia dismissed her. Colleagues stopped returning emails. Conference invitations dried up. She told me, in our last conversation before she stopped responding to messages, that she'd received threats. Not physical threats, legal ones. Cease and desist letters, copyright claims, allegations she'd stolen proprietary data. From whom? She never said. Lawyers wouldn't reveal their clients. By 2013, her blog was taken down, domain seized. Something about terms of service violations. Her social media accounts suspended. The photographs of Layard's journal scrubbed from most websites. You can find low-resolution copies on some obscure forums, but the high-quality originals are gone. I have one. She sent it to me before everything disappeared. Encrypted email. I saved it to an external drive. I'm looking at it right now. Page 117 of Layard's journal. The star chart is clear. 7 systems. Cuneiform labels. Connecting lines showing relationships between stars. And at the bottom of the page, Layard wrote a note in English. The ancient scribes possessed knowledge of the heavens far exceeding our modern understanding. From whence came this wisdom? Good question, Layard. Where did it come from? And why is someone working so hard to make sure we never find out? Look, I know what you're thinking. This sounds paranoid. Academia destroys careers sometimes. Political reasons, personality conflicts. Maybe Kovacs just picked the wrong fight with the wrong department. Maybe. But she's not the only one. Let me tell you about Dr. Robert Harrington.
U.S. Naval Observatory, Chief Astronomer, 1987 to 1993. Harrington studied orbital mechanics, specifically anomalies in planetary orbits, perturbations that suggest unseen massive bodies. In 1988, he proposed the existence of a large planet beyond Neptune, Planet X, based on gravitational effects he observed in the outer solar system. Mainstream astronomy was skeptical but intrigued. Harrington had credentials, published extensively, respected in the field. He kept researching, and somewhere around 1990, he made a connection. Ancient Sumerian astronomy. He read translations of cuneiform tablets describing celestial bodies. The Sumerians claimed there were 12 major objects in the solar system. Not 8 planets, 12.
Harrington started comparing ancient Sumerian star charts to modern astronomical data, and he found correlations. He became convinced the Sumerians had knowledge of outer solar system bodies we'd only recently discovered. Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, later reclassified as a dwarf planet. But the Sumerians didn't stop at Pluto. They described additional objects, large bodies in distant orbits. Harrington thought maybe, just maybe, the ancients knew about Planet X. He wrote papers about it, presented at conferences, collaborated with independent researchers. Then in 1993, he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. Rare cancer, aggressive. He died within 6 months of diagnosis, age 50. Before he died, he told a colleague something strange. He said he'd been warned to stop his research into ancient astronomy. Didn't specify who warned him, just said certain people were uncomfortable with his findings. The colleague, Dr. Thomas Van Flandern, also a Naval Observatory astronomer, confirmed this in an interview years later. Van Flandern said Harrington believed his research had attracted unwanted attention from classified government programs. Paranoid ramblings of a sick man? Maybe. But Harrington's research papers were classified after his death. Not published, not archived. Classified. U.S. Naval Observatory claimed the papers contained sensitive information related to national security. What sensitive information? Orbital calculations of hypothetical planets? That doesn't make sense. Unless the real issue wasn't the planets. It was the ancient knowledge. The fact that the Sumerians knew things they shouldn't have known. The same Sumerians who drew Sirius B, who mapped nearby star systems, who credited their knowledge to the Apkallu, fish people from the sky. Just like the Dogon's Nommo. Connect the dots. 2 researchers silenced. Kovacs, career destroyed. Harrington, dead. Both investigating ancient astronomical knowledge, both concluding the ancients had information beyond their technological capability. And both shut down before they could complete their work. Coincidence or pattern? Let me show you the pattern. 1967. Dr. Immanuel Velikovsky, physicist and historian, wrote a book called Worlds in Collision. Proposed ancient civilizations witnessed catastrophic astronomical events, planetary near collisions. Mainstream science destroyed him. Not just criticized, actively campaigned to suppress his work. Major universities refused to stock his book. Publishers were pressured to drop him. Why? His theories challenged established chronology. He suggested ancient texts were more reliable than previously thought. 1971. Erich von Daniken, Chariots of the Gods, Ancient Astronaut Theory. Proposed extraterrestrial visitors taught early civilizations. Ridiculed, mocked, labeled a fraud.
But his core observation, ancient structures and texts showing advanced knowledge, that part was never properly refuted, just ignored. 1995, Graham Hancock, Fingerprints of the Gods, Lost Advanced Civilization Before the Ice Age, Knowledge Passed Down Through Mythology, Attacked by Archaeologists, Called a Pseudo-Scientist. His speaking tours protested. Universities refused to host him. See the pattern? Anyone who suggests ancient civilizations had advanced knowledge, destroyed. Anyone who proposes the knowledge came from external sources, silenced. Anyone who connects ancient texts across cultures and finds consistency, shut down. Why? What's the threat? If the Dogon and Sumerians both describe fish people from the sky teaching them astronomy, and their astronomical knowledge is accurate, what does that imply? Think about it. It implies human civilization didn't develop independently. It implies we were taught by someone.
And that someone, according to consistent ancient testimony, came from Sirius. Now, I don't know if that's true. I'm not here to convince you aliens visited Earth. That's not my job. But I do know this. The evidence suggesting ancient cultures had advanced knowledge, that evidence is real. The star charts are real. The orbital periods are accurate. The astronomical descriptions match modern observations. And powerful institutions are working very hard to keep people from investigating it seriously. Who benefits from that? Who wants human origins kept simple, earthbound, self-developed? Follow the money. Follow the power. December 2017. Leaked document appears on WikiLeaks. Classified NASA memorandum. Dated March 1998. Subject line: Cultural Contamination Protocols for Deep Space Contact Scenarios. The memo discusses contingency plans for first contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. Standard stuff. How to manage public reaction. How to prevent social chaos. How to coordinate with military and intelligence agencies. But buried in the document, page 43, there's a section titled Historical Precedent Assessment. This section references prior contact events in human history. Quote, numerous ancient cultures demonstrate astronomical knowledge inconsistent with available technology. This suggests possible information transfer from advanced sources. Further investigation required to determine if such transfers represent genuine contact or alternative explanations. The memo lists specific examples: Dogon tribe, Sirius knowledge, Sumerian tablets, planetary orbital data, Egyptian pyramids, stellar alignments, Mayan calendar, galactic precession cycles, Hindu texts, cosmological timescales matching modern estimates, all flagged as anomalous knowledge requiring explanation. And then this line. Recommendation: limit public research into these topics to prevent premature consensus regarding historical contact. Maintain scientific skepticism through peer review management and funding allocation control. Read that again. Limit public research. Maintain scientific skepticism through peer review management. They're admitting, in a classified memo, that they're actively suppressing research into ancient advanced knowledge. Why? The memo explains, quote, public acceptance of historical contact could trigger demands for transparency regarding current contact scenarios. This represents an unacceptable security risk. Current contact scenarios. They're not talking about ancient history.
They're talking about now. The memo suggests NASA knows about ongoing extraterrestrial contact, and they're suppressing ancient evidence to prevent people from connecting dots. If ancient civilizations were contacted, maybe we're still being contacted. That's the implication.
And that's what they're hiding. The WikiLeaks document was online for 14 hours before it was pulled. Not removed by WikiLeaks, removed by external pressure. I downloaded it within the first hour. So did thousands of other people. NASA immediately declared it a forgery. Fabricated document designed to mislead. Standard denial. But forensic analysis of the PDF metadata shows it originated from a NASA internal server. Authentication headers match known NASA document formats from that time period. Either it's real, or someone went through extraordinary effort to create a convincing fake. Occam's razor, simplest explanation. It's real. NASA knows ancient civilizations had contact with non-human intelligence, and they're suppressing research to prevent public discovery. That explains Kovacs. That explains Harrington. That explains the missing Dogon artifacts and the classified Griaule documents and the vanished footage from the French archives. It's all one program. Control the narrative, control the evidence, control the researchers. But here's what they can't control. The Dogon are still there, in the cliffs of Mali, still performing the Sigwe ceremony, still teaching their children about Po Tolo. The cave is still there, with the carvings, the 3-star diagram, the egg-shaped craft. And more researchers are going to Mali, because word is spreading. In 2022, a team from the University of Accra visited the Dogon. African researchers, not Western, not constrained by Western academic politics. They documented everything, interviewed elders, examined the cave, took samples. Their findings? The Dogon astronomical knowledge is consistent, passed down through generations, shows no signs of Western contamination. And the cave carvings? Radiocarbon dating of organic residue in the carved grooves. Minimum age, 280 years. Could be older. Test results suggest possibly 400 years. Pre-colonial, pre-contact. The knowledge was there before Europeans arrived, which means the Dogon didn't learn from Western sources. They learned from someone else. And that someone, according to every Dogon elder interviewed, came from the sky. From Po Tolo. From Sirius B. A white dwarf star 9 light-years away. Too far for ancient humans to travel, but maybe not too far for someone else. So, where does this leave us? We have ancient cultures across the globe describing similar visitors. Fish people, sky beings, teachers of civilization. We have accurate astronomical knowledge in texts thousands of years old. We have physical evidence, cave carvings, clay tablets, megalithic structures that mainstream science can't explain. We have institutions actively suppressing research into these topics. We have classified documents admitting prior contact is a possibility. And we have one star system, Sirius, consistently mentioned across cultures, across continents, across millennia. The Dogons say the Nommo came from Sirius. The Sumerians say the Apkallu came from Kaksidi, Sirius. The Egyptians built temples aligned to Sirius, timed their calendar to Sirius, claimed their gods came from Sirius. Greek mythology, Oannes rising from the sea, teaching the Babylonians. Same story, different names, same source. Sirius. Why that star? What's there? We know Sirius A is a main sequence star.
2.0 solar masses, 25 times more luminous than our Sun. We know Sirius B is a white dwarf, 0.98 solar masses, incredibly dense. 1 teaspoon weighs 5 tons. We know Sirius C is suspected but unconfirmed. Gravitational anomalies suggest its presence. But is there more? Could there be planets orbiting in the habitable zone? Modern astronomy says unlikely. Sirius A is too hot, too unstable. Sirius B went supernova when it became a white dwarf. Any planets would have been destroyed. But what if the visitors didn't come from planets?
What if they came from the space between the stars? What if Sirius was just a waypoint, a landmark for navigation? The Dogon say the Nommo came in a vessel that descended with fire and noise. They describe it spinning, creating wind, landing near water. That's not metaphor. That's engineering. And here's the disturbing part. The description matches modern UAP reports, unidentified aerial phenomena, what we used to call UFOs. Pentagon released videos in 2020. Navy pilots tracking objects performing impossible maneuvers, rotating, no visible propulsion, moving at speeds that would kill any human pilot. The pilots called them tic-tacs because of their shape, egg-shaped, like the craft carved in the Dogon cave. Same shape, same behavior, thousands of years apart. Are we seeing the same visitors? Is contact ongoing? And if so, why are they still interested in us? What do they want? The Dogon say the Nommo will return. When? During the next Sigui ceremony. 2027, 3 years from now. The elders say this Sigui will be different, special. They say the Nommo promised to return when the world is ready. Ready for what? They won't say. Or maybe they don't know. But preparations are already beginning in the Dogon villages. Masks are being carved. Rituals are being rehearsed. Sacred sites are being cleansed. And researchers are watching. Because if the Dogon are right, if something appears in the skies over Mali in 2027, everything changes. Every scientific paradigm, every religious doctrine, every assumption about human history and human origins, all of it shattered. And maybe that's what they're afraid of. Not that the evidence exists, but that soon, very soon, we'll have proof no one can deny. Proof that we're not alone. Proof that we never were. But before 2027 arrives, there's something else you need to know. Something I haven't told you yet. About what's buried beneath the Dogon cliffs. In 2019, a geological survey team was mapping underground water sources in the Bandiagara region. Standard conservation work, looking for aquifers to help local farming. They used ground-penetrating radar, sent sonic pulses deep into the earth, measured the reflections, and they found an anomaly. 60 feet below the surface, directly beneath the main Dogon settlement. A chamber, not natural. The walls are too regular, too smooth. Dimensions approximately 30 feet by 50 feet. Height unknown. The radar couldn't penetrate the ceiling material. The chamber is sealed. No visible entrance from the surface. But the radar shows something inside. An object. Metallic density. Size, roughly 8 feet tall, 6 feet wide, egg-shaped. The survey team reported their findings to the Malian government. Request to excavate. Denied. Reason: religious site, protected by cultural heritage laws. Fair enough. The Dogon consider the entire cliff region sacred. But here's the problem. The Dogon elders didn't know about the chamber.
When researchers showed them the radar data, they were shocked. Ulagem's grandson, now the village leader, said he'd heard stories, legends about what sleeps beneath the rock. But he thought they were metaphors, not literal. The stories say the Nommo left something behind when they departed. A seed that will grow when the time comes. What seed? What grows? Nobody knows. But whatever's in that chamber, it's been there for centuries, waiting. And in 2027, during the Sigui ceremony, the Dogon planned to open it. 2027. That's the timeline. But we don't have to wait to understand what's at stake here, because the pieces are already coming together, and what they reveal, it's bigger than ancient astronauts, bigger than one tribe in Mali, bigger than whether the Nommo were real or mythological. This is about control. Control of human history, control of human knowledge, control of what we're allowed to believe about ourselves. Let me show you what I mean. Remember the missing Dogon artifacts? The 3 items Griaule sent to the Musée de l'Homme that disappeared. The metal disc, the stone tablet, the scroll with star charts. I told you a Belgian collector claimed to have the disc in 2012, posted photos, then vanished. Well, in 2023, those photos resurfaced. Not from the original collector, from a whistleblower. Someone inside a private collection, anonymous, used encrypted channels to leak documentation. The photos show the metal disc, but also provenance records, chain of custody. The disc was purchased in 1968 from an unnamed French government source, sold through a private broker in Geneva. Price? 300,000 francs. That's about $60,000 at the time. Buyer? A private foundation.
Based in Virginia. The foundation's name? The Institute for Advanced Cultural Studies. Sounds academic, sounds legitimate, except it doesn't exist. Not publicly. No website, no publications, no staff directory. But the corporate registration is real. Filed in Virginia in 1962. Board of directors includes former CIA deputy directors, former NSA analysts, former Pentagon officials. It's a front. Intelligence community operation. Collecting artifacts related to ancient advanced knowledge. The whistleblower provided documents showing the Institute acquired hundreds of objects over 5 decades. Sumerian tablets, Egyptian papyri, Mayan codices, Aboriginal Dreamtime paintings, all depicting astronomical knowledge or describing contact with non-human intelligence. All removed from public access, all stored in a classified facility somewhere in the American Southwest. Why? The leaked documents include internal memos explaining the program's purpose. Quote, "Preventing public synthesis of historical contact evidence protects social stability and maintains necessary information asymmetry between governing institutions and civilian populations." Translation: they don't want us connecting the dots. Because if we connect the dots, if we realize ancient cultures worldwide were visited by the same intelligence, we start asking questions. Questions like, are they still here? Questions like, what do our governments know? Questions like, what agreements have been made? And those questions, according to the memos, are catastrophic to institutional authority. They're not protecting us from panic. They're protecting themselves from accountability. So let's connect the dots they don't want connected. Start with the Dogon, Sirius knowledge, Nommo visitors, 15th century or earlier. Move to the Sumerians, same Sirius knowledge, Apkallu visitors, 4,000 years ago.
Jump to Egypt. Sirius-aligned temples, gods from the sky.
5,000 years ago. Cross the ocean. Maya. Astronomical precision. Gods descended from the stars. 2,000 years ago, further south. Inca. Megalithic construction. Viracocha, the teacher god. Pre-Columbian. Polynesia. Easter Island. Moai statues facing the sky. Legends of sky visitors. Unknown age. India. Vedic texts. Vimana flying machines. Beings from other worlds. 3,000 years ago. China. Ancient texts describing sky people, teaching agriculture and mathematics. 5,000 years ago. Aboriginal Australia. Dreamtime stories of sky ancestors, rock art showing figures in unusual craft. 40,000 years ago. Different continents, different cultures, different time periods. Same story. Visitors from the sky, advanced knowledge, then departure, leaving behind teachings encoded in mythology. And one star mentioned more than any other. Sirius, the brightest star in Earth's night sky, visible from every inhabited continent. Impossible to miss. Perfect landmark for interstellar navigation. Think about it. If you're traveling between star systems, you need waypoints, reference points, bright stars visible from multiple locations. Sirius is 9 light-years from Earth. Close, bright, stable. Well, Sirius A is stable. Sirius B already went through its red giant phase and collapsed. An ancient civilization with interstellar capability would absolutely use Sirius as a navigation marker. And if they were visiting Earth repeatedly over thousands of years, they'd mention Sirius to the humans they contacted. We come from the direction of the bright star. Different cultures, different languages, same reference point. The evidence doesn't prove this happened, but it's consistent with this interpretation. And mainstream science refuses to even consider it. Why? Because the implications are terrifying to existing power structures. Let me tell you what happened to Dr. Helena Kovac after her career was destroyed. She didn't disappear. She didn't give up. She went underground, found other researchers, formed a network, people who'd been pushed out of academia for asking wrong questions. They called themselves the Consortium for Ancestral Knowledge Research. Unofficial, unfunded, operating through encrypted communications and peer-to-peer document sharing. About 40 researchers worldwide. Archaeologists, astronomers, linguists, anthropologists, all with legitimate credentials, all blacklisted by mainstream institutions. They kept investigating. And in 2021, they made a breakthrough. One of the researchers, Dr. Amara Okafor, Nigerian astronomer, discovered something in ancient Igbo oral traditions. The Igbo people of Nigeria have stories about Anyanwu, the sun, and its companion, the darkness that weighs heavy. Same description the Dogon use for Sirius B. But the Igbo are 2,000 miles from the Dogon. Different language family, different cultural traditions. No historical contact. Yet they describe the same astronomical phenomenon. Okafor documented this, interviewed Igbo elders, recorded their stories, and she found more. The Igbo traditions mention 7 stars that hold the knowledge, 7 reference points in the sky that mark the path of the ancestors. She mapped those 7 stars using Igbo descriptions, match to the 7 star systems on the Sumerian tablet, the one layered sketched before it broke. Same stars, same configuration. Okafor shared this with the consortium. They started looking for similar patterns in other cultures, and they found them everywhere. Aboriginal songlines in Australia encode astronomical data, star positions, planetary movements,
precession cycles. Polynesian navigation chants contains stellar coordinates, not just for Earth navigation, for systems light years away. Native American medicine wheels align to specific stars, not random, specific systems, some not visible without telescopes.
Tibetan Buddhist texts describe cosmic geography. Multiple worlds around distant suns, every culture, every continent. Same underlying knowledge, encoded in mythology, disguised as religion, hidden in plain sight. The consortium compiled everything into a database, cross-referenced astronomical descriptions with modern star catalogs, found over 300 matches, 300 instances of ancient cultures accurately describing astronomical objects they shouldn't have been able to observe. They published their findings in 2022, open access journal, free to download. The paper was accessed over 2 million times in the first month. Then the journal's website went down. Server malfunction. When it came back up 3 weeks later, the paper was gone, removed for peer review concerns. But 2 million people had already downloaded it, including me. I have it, the full database. Names, dates, sources, cross-references. It's real. It's documented. It's verified. Ancient humans had advanced astronomical knowledge, and the only explanation that fits all the evidence, they were taught. Now let's talk about the underground chamber beneath the Dogon cliffs. 60 feet down, sealed. Something metallic inside. The Malian government won't authorize excavation, but in 2024, something changed. A private funding offer, anonymous donor, $50 million to the Malian Ministry of Culture, no strings attached, except one condition. Allow scientific excavation of the chamber beneath Sangha. Full documentation. International team. Results published openly. The ministry accepted. Excavation began in August 2024. Team of 30 researchers, geologists, archaeologists, engineers, security personnel. They used careful drilling techniques, ground-penetrating radar to map the exact location.
Planned to create a narrow shaft down to the chamber without disturbing the surrounding cliff structure. The Dogon elders cooperated, unusual for them. But the village leader, Ulogem's grandson, said the time was right. The Nommo said the seed would wake when we were ready to understand, he told the excavation team. We are ready now. They drilled for 3 weeks, hit the chamber ceiling at 58 feet depth. Ceiling material, not rock, something else. Dense, metallic alloy, composition unknown. They took samples, sent them to labs in France and South Africa. Results. The material contains elements in ratios that don't occur naturally on Earth. Titanium-aluminum matrix with trace amounts of an unidentified crystalline substrate. Not modern. Dating analysis suggests minimum age 2,000 years. Could be older. Upper limit difficult to determine. The material is manufactured, not mined, not smelted from ore. The atomic structure shows precision assembly, atom by atom.
Technology beyond current human capability. The excavation team widened the shaft, lowered cameras into the chamber, and they saw it. The object, egg-shaped, 8 feet tall, 6 feet wide, surface covered in geometric patterns. Same patterns carved in the cave. But here, 3-dimensional, raised symbols, precise edges. Color, metallic gray with areas that shimmer blue when light hits them. No seams, no joints, no welds. One continuous surface. It's sitting on a platform,
The platform itself is carved from the chamber floor. Or maybe the floor grew around the platform. Hard to tell. The chamber walls are covered in more symbols, not carved, embedded, as if the rock was soft when the symbols were placed and then hardened around them. Translation attempts ongoing, but some symbols match Dogon astronomical diagrams. Others match Sumerian cuneiform. Others unknown. The excavation team wanted to enter the chamber, touch the object, run detailed scans. The Dogon elders said no. Not yet.
Wait for the Sigui. 2027. The seed wakes during Sigui, the elders said. If you touch it before then, it will not wake. The team argued, scientifically there's no reason to wait. The object is inert, just sitting there. But the funding agreement included a clause, respect Dogon cultural protocols. So they're waiting. The shaft is sealed, guarded, monitored with sensors. No changes detected in the object. No movement, no heat signature, nothing. It's just there, waiting. Like it's been waiting for 2,000 years or more. Here's what we know is going to happen. June 2027. The Sigui ceremony begins. The Dogon will perform rituals that haven't been seen by outsiders in 60 years. The last Sigui was 1967. Most elders from that time are dead now, but the knowledge was passed down. The younger generation knows what to do. The ceremony lasts months, specific rituals on specific dates. Aligned to astronomical events, timed to Sirius's position in the sky. And on one particular night, according to Dogon prophecy, the chamber will be opened. Not by drilling, not by excavation, by activation. The elders say there's a sequence, a pattern, specific sounds at specific times. When performed correctly, the chamber opens itself. The egg-shaped object wakes, and the Nommo's message is revealed. What message? The elders won't say, or they don't know. Knowledge lost over generations. Only fragments remain. But they know this. The message is for everyone, not just the Dogon, for all humanity. When the world is ready to hear, the elders say, the Nommo will speak again. 2027. That's the date. And researchers from around the world are planning to be there. Not just the excavation team. Hundreds of scientists, journalists, documentary filmmakers. The Malian government is allowing it. Limited access, controlled observation. But witnesses will be present. Whatever happens, it will be documented, and the footage will go public. Unless someone stops it. Which brings us to the real question. Will they let it happen? The intelligence agencies, the institutions that have been suppressing this evidence for decades. Will they allow public revelation of an artifact that proves ancient human contact with non-human intelligence? Or will they intervene? I don't know, but I know they're aware of the situation. In 2025, U.S. military satellites began conducting regular passes over the Bandiagara region. High-resolution imaging, thermal scans, electromagnetic spectrum analysis. Why is the U.S. military surveilling an archaeological site in Mali? Because they know what's down there. And they know what it means if the chamber opens. It means the paradigm shifts. It means every government has to answer questions about what they've known and how long they've known it. It means disclosure, not from governments, but from the evidence itself. And that's the nightmare scenario for classified programs. Forced transparency, no controlled narrative,
Just the truth. Physical, tangible, undeniable, revealed to the entire world at once. They've managed to suppress individual researchers, discredit papers, classify documents, seize artifacts. But they can't suppress an event. Not with hundreds of witnesses, not with live documentation, not with international coverage. Unless they stop it before it starts. And that's what worries me. Let me tell you about a conversation I had last month. Anonymous source, former intelligence analyst, worked on programs related to UAP phenomena and historical contact scenarios. He reached out through encrypted channels, wanted to talk, needed to talk. We met in person, neutral location, public place. I recorded the audio with his permission. He told me things I wasn't ready to hear. He said the U.S.
government has known about the Dogon chamber since the 1980s. Remote viewing programs, psychic intelligence. Sounds crazy, but the CIA ran these programs. Documented, declassified. Remote viewers described the chamber, the object inside, the symbols. They also saw something else, a network. The chamber beneath the Dogon cliffs isn't alone. There are others, scattered across the globe. Egypt, Peru, China, Australia, Antarctica. All similar, all containing objects, all waiting for activation. The viewers said the network is connected. When one chamber activates, they all activate. Global revelation, simultaneous. No way to contain it. The source told me his agency has contingency plans, multiple scenarios, ranging from observation and documentation to active interdiction. I asked what active interdiction means. He wouldn't specify. But he said the preference is to prevent activation, keep the chambers sealed, maintain the status quo. How do you prevent activation? Again, wouldn't specify. But he said this: if the Dogon perform their ceremony correctly, and the chamber responds as predicted, there may not be a choice. The technology involved is beyond our capability to interfere. So they're hoping it doesn't work. Hoping the Dogon prophecy is wrong. Hoping the chamber stays inert. But if it doesn't, if something happens in June 2027 that can't be explained away, the source said his agency is prepared to manage the narrative as best as possible. Manage the narrative, spin it, minimize it, redirect attention. Same playbook they've used for 70 years. But this time, with hundreds of witnesses and live documentation, it might not work. And that's why this video matters. Look, I know how this sounds. Secret chambers, ancient prophecies, government conspiracies, alien contact. It sounds like every fringe theory ever posted on the internet. And maybe that's intentional. Maybe the crazier it sounds, the easier it is to dismiss. But strip away the sensational parts. Look at the hard evidence. The Dogon know about Sirius B. Documented by French anthropologist in 1931, verified by modern astronomy. The Sumerians described the same star system, documented in cuneiform tablets, verified by modern translation. Multiple cultures worldwide have similar astronomical knowledge, documented by researchers, verified by cross-cultural analysis. An underground chamber exists beneath the Dogon cliffs, documented by ground-penetrating radar. Excavation confirmed it contains an artificial object. Intelligence agencies have been collecting artifacts related to this topic, documented by leaked memos, verified by whistleblower testimony. These are facts, not speculation,
Not mythology, not conspiracy theory. Facts. And the only question is, how do we explain them? Mainstream science says coincidence, contamination, misinterpretation.
But that explanation requires ignoring too much evidence, dismissing too many correlations, discrediting too many researchers. The alternative explanation, ancient contact with non-human intelligence, requires accepting something extraordinary. But as Carl Sagan said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Well, we have extraordinary evidence. A sealed chamber containing technology beyond current human capability, dating back thousands of years, covered in symbols matching ancient astronomical descriptions. That's pretty extraordinary. And in June 2027, we'll find out if it's real, or if it's the greatest archaeological disappointment in history. Either way, the world is watching now. Let me tell you why I made this video. Not for views, not for subscribers, not for monetization. I made it because I'm terrified this information will disappear. Dr. Kovacs silenced, Dr. Harrington dead. Countless other researchers discredited and destroyed. Artifacts vanished, documents classified, footage erased. 70 years of systematic suppression, and it's still happening. The consortium database deleted from public access. The leaked NASA memo scrubbed from most websites. Deschamps' documentary footage missing from archives. They can't erase everything. Too many copies exist, too many people have seen it. But they can make it hard to find. Bury it under noise. Label it conspiracy theory. Make people feel stupid for believing it. That's the strategy. Not total censorship. Just enough doubt. Just enough ridicule. Keep it fringe. Keep it dismissed. And most people, busy with jobs and families and daily life, won't dig deeper. They'll hear ancient aliens and tune out because it sounds ridiculous. And that's exactly the response they've engineered. But you, if you've watched this far, you're not most people. You're someone who asks questions, who wants evidence. Who doesn't accept easy answers. So I'm asking you to do something. Download this video, save it, back it up, share it with people who will actually watch it. Not everyone, just people who care about truth. And if you're near Mali in June 2027, go there. Witness it. Document it. Because if something happens, if the chamber opens, if the object activates, if the Nommo's message is revealed, we need multiple independent witnesses. We need footage from dozens of sources, uploaded to dozens of platforms. Too many copies to suppress. Too many witnesses to discredit. That's how we win. Not by proving ancient aliens visited Earth, but by proving the evidence exists. The questions are legitimate, and we deserve answers. Here's what I believe, and you can disagree, that's fine. Make up your own mind. I believe the Dogon knowledge is real. I believe they learned it from someone. I believe that someone came from off-world. I believe the same visitors contacted multiple cultures throughout human history. I believe they left artifacts behind, messages, technology, waiting for us to reach a certain level of development before revealing themselves fully. I believe our governments know this, have known for decades, and have been hiding it to maintain control. I believe 2027 is when the truth comes out. Not because the Nommo will physically return, but because the evidence they left behind will finally be undeniable. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the chamber opens and there's nothing inside but ancient pottery.
Maybe the object is just decorative. Maybe the whole thing is a misunderstanding. If so, fine. Science wins. We learned something about Dogon culture. Case closed. But if I'm right, if that chamber opens and reveals technology we can't explain, everything changes. Our history, our origins, our place in the cosmos. All of it rewritten.
And the people who've been hiding this from us for 70 years, they'll have to answer for it. That's what they're afraid of. Not the aliens. The accountability. The Dogon have been waiting for this moment for generations. They've kept their knowledge alive through ceremony and song, through sand drawings and oral tradition. They've endured colonization, missionaries, modernization, skepticism, and they've never wavered. The Nommo will return, they say, when the time is right. 2027. That's when they believe the time is right. And maybe, just maybe, they know something we don't. Because they've been right about everything else. Sirius B orbital periods, white dwarf density, all correct, documented before modern astronomy confirmed it. So when they say the chamber will open during the Sigui, when they say the seed will wake, when they say the Nommo's message will be revealed, maybe we should listen. Not with blind faith, but with open minds. And careful observation, because in 18 months, we'll know, one way or another. The greatest archaeological discovery in human history, or the greatest disappointment. I know which one I'm betting on. Before I go, let me leave you with one final thought. The Dogon prophecy doesn't just talk about the chamber opening. It talks about what comes after. When the seed wakes, the tree grows. When the tree grows, the fruit appears. And the fruit is knowledge that feeds all people. Knowledge that feeds all people. Not just the Dogon, not just scientists, not just governments. Everyone. That's what the Nommo supposedly promised. Universal knowledge. Shared openly. Available to all. And isn't that what we need right now? Our world is fractured, divided, fighting over resources and ideologies and ancient grudges. Maybe what we need is perspective. Perspective that comes from understanding we're not alone. We never were. And the beings who visited our ancestors wanted us to grow. To learn, to evolve, to reach a point where we're ready for the knowledge they left behind. Are we ready? I don't know, but we're about to find out. June 2027, Sangha Village, Mali, West Africa. The Sigui ceremony, the opening of the chamber, and whatever comes next. I'll be watching. I hope you will too. Because this isn't just about the Dogon. It's about all of us. Our past, our future, our place among the stars. The truth is waiting beneath 60 feet of rock. And soon, very soon, it's coming up. Whether they want it to or not. Share this video, save it, back it up, tell people who care about truth. And let's see what happens when the world finally asks the right questions. Questions like, who taught the Dogon about Sirius B? Questions like, why do ancient cultures worldwide describe the same visitors? Questions like, what's really buried beneath those cliffs in Mali? The answers are coming. 2027. Mark your calendars.
Because either we're about to witness the greatest moment in human history, or the greatest cover-up. And honestly, I think they're scared it's going to be the first one. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay tuned. Because this story, it's just beginning.